Hey everybody, this is just a quick intro to our course for the summer, Math 125, Mathematics for Business, Applied Business Mathematics, correct title, sorry. The Let's see. Well, I sent everybody an email. Most likely, if you're arrived at this video, you came here via the link that's in this email. But I thought I'd start there and just emphasize a few things, and then we'll also head over to the My Open Math site and give you a quick intro on how that works. Um, First thing I really kind of want to emphasize is the expectations that you should have about time spent on the course. I think people tend to go, oh, it's a asynchronous online. I'll just, throw it together at the last minute. But really, that's not a good plan. I have seen that fail. Don't crash and burn like that. Keep on top of the material on a week by week basis. There is a feature of the course that is intended to kind of enforce that, which is that there's going to be a quiz every Wednesday, including this Wednesday. Um, so, yeah, the point is, sure, you get to set your own schedule and everything, but don't procrastinate. Keep on track with where you need to be in course. All right. So that said, what other things are in here? There's a little notice about the textbooks we're using. The textbooks are, I almost don't want to call it that because what we did is kind of cobble together stuff out of a couple of different books and put it into a single binder. If you want, you can get the paper version of it. It's really cheap. I think Amazon just recently upped their prices on these books, but the printed on demand things, but it's not a whole lot more, maybe $7 as opposed to 6 before. Um, I personally would not recommend purchasing that. I think that right on the My Open Math site, you get access to all the parts of the text you need. If you have an issue with reading stuff on a screen, though, you can get the paper version and dig through that. So yeah, My Open Math is where everything will be. If you go onto the Blackboard system and look for things, all you'll see there is a note that says, go look on My Open Math, because that's where everything is. If you haven't used that system before, it's fairly straightforward. I think it's a little less bells and whistles than you might be used to with, like, if you've used things from Pearson or some of the other academic publishers. But like the textbooks, this is a completely free service. So we feel that if it maybe doesn't look quite as sexy, but it is free to the students, that's a plus. Um, so yeah, if you haven't used it before, you'll need to register there. You'll just need to pick a username and a password. Let me say a few things about those. One is other people are going to see your username, not just me, so don't go nuts. Keep it tame. Password, just make sure that you don't reuse something that you use for other more important things. There's no guarantee that this system wouldn't get hacked, and if you put your online banking password on this system, then bad guys will know what that is, and you wouldn't want that. Um, Lastly, on here, this is why it's in all caps. Please, please, please use your Southern email to get onto the system. If you have a previous account that doesn't use your Southern email, just discard that one and start a new account up that uses your Southern email. It will break things for me if you don't use that address. Once you've gotten registered, you'll just go to their site. I'll go there in a second, and you'll find the Enroll in a New Class button. And these are the things you'll need to know to get into the class. The ID number 183568, and the enrollment key, which is the word butter, capitalized B, and the usual spelling. So why don't we head over there, and I'll continue talking on that site. So, well, I should probably log out and show you this from scratch. So this is the screen you'll be presented when you first come to here without having logged in. I'm trying to think. I guess it's no. Sorry, you do need to register as a student first before you get access to the one that lets you add a course. So let me assume that you can figure out how to add the course on your own. And I remembered my password. Lucky me. Okay, so this is not the view you would see when you first pop in, because it's a professor's view, but I will jump to a student view in a second. Just need to find our course. There it is. And I can change to the way the thing will appear for a student, except you wouldn't have these buttons that allow you to change it back to the professor view. But other than that, it should look more or less like what you're seeing here. What's on here? Well, there's messages and forums. The calendar's kind of useful. Class begins on the 22nd. There's other things in this calendar. Why am I not seeing them? Oh, they're not due yet, so they haven't been assigned to you yet, so you won't see them yet. But um, in my view, you can see them. Anyway, you can get to look at your grades so far in the class, and I will try to keep that updated with things that are external to the my open math system, like our exams. The meat of the course is over here. There's this little welcome section, and this is where quizzes will be. I mentioned the quizzes once a week, but these things with the Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's the main content of the course. I mentioned there's a discussion group. If anything is unclear about this from this little intro video, throw in a new thread into the discussion group, and you can post a topic in that, and maybe, especially if you think it's something that would be a question other people might have too, that's a good idea to get it in there. Let's open up the welcome section and we'll see what's in there. Well, first, another note to say, don't go to Blackboard, stick to right where you are. The syllabus is here and a week-by-week schedule. You also sort of can use the calendar for that schedule, but I like a separate page that's got all the stuff on it. Yeah, there's a 6-week system here, right? The syllabus, well, you can see the standard syllabus has got a bunch of, honestly, boilerplate language stuff. I've included my cell phone number because I am going to be traveling a couple of times during this course. So if you're having a hard time getting a hold of me via email, use that. But email is the usual thing to. I'm normally on the email 2 or 3 times a day, so it'd be rare that you'd have more than a 5 or 6 hour wait to hear back from me on an email. The rest of that stuff is not necessary. I think the thing that people will be most interested in is down here at the bottom, the way grades will be assigned. I'm very, very conscious of not allowing subjective issues to get into my grades. The way I think of you as a human being shouldn't have any impact on whether you've achieved the goals of the course. If I like you or if I dislike you, that really ought not matter. And so, and I typically do like my students. Don't worry about that. But it can go either way, right? You can introduce bias because you're fond of somebody, so you give them a better grade than they really earned. That's not right. Or if you find somebody annoying but they're doing a good job, why should that hold them back? So I really do try to be as objective as is humanly possible. That leads to a grading scheme here that's based kind of entirely on objective grades, the number of points that you make on various entities. And that does make it sound a little bit robotic. It's not quite that bad. Like, for instance, if we have a situation where no one in the class does well on an exam, I will allow for the option to maybe do some extra credit or even occasionally just a plain curve on an exam. But more often almost always what I do is give a little extra credit assignment. Anyway, the point is there's this sort of objective list of things that you can get points on that's given ahead of time. And if you get 99% of the points, you're going to get an A plus. If you get 79% of the points, it'll be a C plus. I'm not going to, there's no judgment call in that. I just take the scores and convert them to the grades. The scores are the system is designed with a little bit of leeway, in that some stuff is, let's call it hardcore, exams, quizzes, a little bit less so. But other things you can get a full 100% on if you just are willing to keep trying. So there's two kinds of homework, which are together almost half the point total, 300 points out of 700. There's homework that is, well, it is the My Open Math assignments, and then there's homework that you'll do in this traditional way, like writing stuff on a piece of paper, although a little bit non-traditional. You will have to scan it and upload it onto the My Open Math system. Anyway, I'm not going to grade that, even that book homework. It's just going to be, look at it. Did it seem like you tried every problem? And if you did, then you get full credit. So it's easy to get 100% on the book homework. It's not quite as easy, but it is doable to get 100% on the My Open Math assignments. And quizzes, another 100 points worth of our total. Well, we have 6 quizzes during the course of the semester. They're 20 points apiece, but they're only be counted for 100 points. So whatever your worst one is will get ditched. If you miss a quiz day, don't sweat it. Just don't miss another one, because that'll just be the one that you drop. Also, the quizzes are on the My Open Math system, and so they're computer graded. You'll know your grade right away, and you get 2 tries at each quiz. So it's quite reasonable to do very, very well on all the homework and the quizzes. And the only things that might pull you back are the 2 exams, the midterm and the final. So in past history of giving this course in this format, my students have done quite well. Just maybe one more time, I'll say, keep on track, right? As long as you are staying current with the material that's due, you'll be fine. So let's get into the My Open Math site here. I was already there, but I'm back. There is a system that we're going to use quite a lot. It's sort of a replacement for a graphing calculator. He calls it, this was written by a colleague. He wrote online graphing calculators. I think there are 2 principal things that people use for online graphing calculator type stuff. GeoGebra is what we're going to recommend for this course, although there's another system called Desmos that a lot of people like. I'm actually a fan of Desmos. I think it's a little bit better of a system. But Desmos has one problem with it. It doesn't have some of the features that GeoGebra has, which we'll need in the last 2 sections of the book. So just in terms of consistency and getting you used to one tool that you can use for everything throughout the course, GeoGebra is the thing to go with. This is what GeoGebra looks like when you first pop it up. There's just a big graphing area, and here's where you might put in some formulas to see about graphing stuff, like, I don't know, how about y equals x to the second. You can type if you're on a computer. If you're on, there's an app version of this, so you can use it on a cell phone, which is handy. If you're in that setting, you've got a keyboard down below, which, like a lot of smartphone keyboards, has a place for alphanumeric, some functions, numbers, including some of the special math symbols, and then a whole lot of other unusual symbols that you might need in mathematics. We won't need too many of those, but look, infinity. Anyway, the thing that's the tab, I guess it is, that says 1, 2, 3 is where you find most of the stuff that you'll need for basic math. You can actually use this as a straight up calculator too, if you just needed to do like 129 plus 400, whoops, I said 4, but I typed 3, 457, you could just do that. And the answer's already there before you finish typing. Yeah, so we'll leave that for now. Just know that that exists. If you want to use it in a testing situation, you should get the app version of it. And there's a version that, I think they call it exam mode, although it might be test mode, that can be locked down. What else? I've talked about the textbook a little bit. Let me just say once again, most of the time I wouldn't bother with the textbook, unless you really have an aversion to reading things on a screen. Just use what's available in here. Like here, I'll open up one of these sections and just pick a random one in there. Inside the section on, what is this? The product and quotient rules for derivatives. There's videos and readings. And there's a list of videos, and then there's the readings. And if you go through all this stuff, this material that's shown here on the screen is exactly what's in the textbook. It's just translated directly into here, including the exercises at the end of each section. So you can get, well, when you go to do the book homework, for instance, you can find that. Yeah, so, well, I wouldn't dissuade you from getting the book. If you feel like it, it's probably not necessary. Let's see. I feel like I'm showing the wrong view. Am I on the student view right now? Okay. I don't know why that thing is visible right now. That's what's bothering me. Oh, it's because I have this open. Dirt. Okay, yeah. It helps to remember to close up the sections that you're using when you're not using them. All right, so maybe a quick talk through of the 5 topics that we'll be going through in the course, and then we'll be done for today. First section, algebra review. If you've had Math 112 recently, that's the sort of stuff that you'll be seeing in here. There isn't a whole lot, just 2 sections. This is like, I think it's 4 sections out of one of the open source books. Yeah, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.5. But all that is visible in here. So it's stuff about functions, and then particularly linear and quadratic functions. I think that should be familiar territory. If it's not, then let me point out, you've got in the videos and readings a whole lot of these brief videos that give you stuff on, individual topics that you might need. And then at the top of each of these sections, there's my overview of sort of it's like you might have an actual lecture for that section. So those vary in length from, I think the worst one is about an hour long, but most of them are around half an hour. Yeah, that's probably the first place I would go is watch the overview video, and then you may just even skip the reading and looking through this stuff. Jump into the problems and see what you can do. I wonder if that would work for us right now in this first assignment. Can we just jump into assignment 1 and see what it's about? Some stuff about function vocabulary first. Given the function, let me see if you guys would read this the way I would read it. The function is g of x equals y. Which of the following statements is true? I would actually always have written that myself as y equals g of x. But anyway, g is the name of the function, x is the input variable, and y is the output variable. That's what I understand it to be, yeah. So I think that's right. Let's read some of this other stuff. G of x is the name of the function. Well, x is certainly not the output. X is almost always used for input, right? So that one's wrong for that reason. But it's also wrong because g of x isn't the name of the function. G of x is what you get when you apply the function to x. So that one's still the lead candidate for me. You see how this plays out? You would just keep going until you try to eliminate stupid answers and then pick from the ones that are reasonable. But I already know this was the right one. Yay. And it gives you this nice green color when you get something right. Oh, we just got 6 points. You're excited? Some of the problems have these little text box that you have to click on and then enter something from the keyboard. Just watch for this little help text that appears underneath where it says enter an integer or decimal number. It gives you some examples if you click. If you think it does not exist, you can put in DNE. There is an infinity symbol that's accessible in the keyboard. So you can also just type 00 like that to get infinity, but I won't because that's not quite the right thing. Anyway, Should I actually solve this problem? The function c of g represents the cost to produce g gallons of chocolate chunk ice cream. Kind of makes sense the way they named those. The c is the cost and g is the gallons of ice cream. What's the meaning of the statement c of 769 equals 167? Well, I mean, there's two numbers to stick into two places, so you could try both ways. But I think it costs $167 to produce 769 gallons of ice cream. So the G is the 769. That is so ludicrously wrong. That wouldn't even pay for the milk, right? Let alone the other ingredients. Anyway, I, I kind of get upset when math problems have they're divorced from reality. The problem is the computer just picks some random numbers to throw in there, and it's picked rather poorly in this case. Anyway, we got it right. Yeah, there's that nice green color again. So that's sort of the way that will proceed. These are not huge assignments, and if you're pretty quick, you could probably do that whole thing in 20 minutes, half an hour. So not a big deal. I'm just going to leave that behind, and it's probably going to yell at me. No, it didn't. Okay. So first up is a review of algebra. Second, exponential and logarithmic functions. That's really big in the world of business. If you want to understand how interest works, how commodity pricing in the presence of inflationary pressures works, you need to understand exponential functions. And logarithmic functions are how we kind of invert exponential functions. If you've got something like an interest problem where it's telling you how a fund will grow over time, you use logarithmic functions to go from a dollar value back to what time it is. So there's sort of two sides of the same coin, really. But people normally emphasize the exponential and don't realize that the logarithmics are the ones that you use to solve the exponentials. So they're both important. Calculus, what can I say other than it sounds scary? I think people hear of that word and it gives them the creeps or something, but it's just the kind of math we use to deal with changing phenomena. If a thing is entirely static, you use geometry or just regular algebra. But when things are moving, and things in the real world are always moving, that's when you need calculus. It's not important for us to become wizards at doing calculus. That's not the idea at all. You need to develop the philosophy of it. You need to understand kind of what's going on with calculus and the two different types of processes that are involved in calculus. But we've got computers that are perfectly good at getting us the answers. The human element of this is that we need to be able to set things up so that the computer can give us an answer. Finally, the last two sections in the course are about matrices. Linear programming is a subset of working with matrices. It has been argued that the Allies won World War II because of linear programming, and it was kept as a state secret by the U.S. government for many years, until the 60s that they finally opened that up and let people know about the simplex method that we'll learn in this course. To make it seem scary, let me just say the point of this is that it allows us to, both of these sections allow us to think about and solve problems that are very, very high dimensionality. The dimension of a problem is it's really just how many numbers are needed as input in order to specify the thing. In real world problems, you may have hundreds or even thousands of variables, and this is not the sort of thing one can sort of try to think about. I mean, you can probably imagine geometry in 2, maybe even 3 dimensions. There are some very, very smart people who can visualize the 4th dimension. Beyond that, human brains just don't work. But there's a method, a system of being able to deal with high dimensionality, so long as we're dealing with what are known as linear problems. And you don't need to visualize the fifth dimension. You just need to know how to set up a matrix and how to tell the computer to arrive at a solution. Again, in these things, the thing I want to emphasize is the human approach. We're not here to learn to be matrix manipulators. That's what machines are for. We're here to understand the philosophy behind the manipulations we do and to gain enough facility with it that we'll recognize it if something's gone wrong because, you know, the input was put into the machine wrong or, um, yeah. There's a saying in computer science, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. That's most often the problem. You put in bad data, and of course you're going to get a bad output. The human being can be, while we can't really visualize thousands of dimensions, we can recognize things that don't make sense, right? And that's what we want you to do in this course is develop a little bit of facility with these ideas so that you would recognize when the result of a computer calculation just couldn't be true. Um, well, we'll get into much more depth in that in the coming weeks. So I think like I promised, that's where I'll bring it to an end. I hope you have a great rest of your day and welcome to the class. I think it's going to be fun and very enlightening. So